addicted to watching porn, and the racier the better, because, well, I think he became numb to the normal stuff. I can't even believe this is my life right now, and that I'm writing these crazy things about the man who would regularly pinky promise and say, just me, in a lovey-dovey, dedicated way after there was confusion at the beginning of our relationship and he thought I was seeing someone else. Okay, now he has made 2 friends at his school and has divulged everything to this one girl I just found out about, and I am livid. The nerve to invite yet another woman between us. She is constantly flirting, though he disputes this, trying to hang out with him and bad-mouthing me. It makes me sick, and I unleashed hard on him today. I don't know what will happen. We've broken up so many times and gotten back together. What should I do?
Wow.
Dude.
This is a big one.
There's a lot of levels to that.
There is. I mean, as far as the sex addiction thing, I mean, I'm not really an expert, so to say, on sex addiction specifically. As far as the parental neglect and multiple years of sibling molestation as being an indicator, I don't know as if that's...
No, so I'll speak to that. I'll speak to the sex addiction side. It's not so much a guarantee that if you've been molested or you've had parental neglect or you have low self-esteem, you'll become a sex addict. But as we've talked about in the past, there's a correlation between trauma.
Trauma, yes.
Yes, and any kind of addiction. And
right.
So some of what she's describing, where this guy is on escort websites and sexting online and seeking the affirmation and affection and flirtation or contact from other women, that implies to me that it's likely he could be a candidate as somebody who is a sex addict, because he is seeking coping with his own low self-esteem, and he's seeking affirmation from all these external sources in a sexual way, and he's doing that despite negative consequences. And there's, I don't know, again, without interviewing him, I wouldn't have all the pieces of the puzzle, but it's off to a good start. Though I don't agree with her statement that those who have been molested are often going to become sex addicts, or no, but those who experience some kind of trauma, yes, they tend to, have a propensity for addiction, though there's no kind of slam dunk case about that.
Right. I mean, and ultimately, I guess at the end of the day, it really kind of boils down to the fact that there's a lot going on here. It's not just one behavior that is a concern. It's multiple behaviors all leading to just the lack of security in this relationship.
Yeah.
And
what's
honestly,
weird too is that she's talking about all these different things, and each one of them you're like, oh, well, that's the end of it. And it's like, no, but then he also was with escorts. Wait, what? Well, I mean, he said it wasn't for real, but then he kind of Googled something that definitely looks like it was for real. Okay, that was the end of it. Well, no, so now he's talking to these girls at college, and, it's like, gosh, lady, like, honestly, to the writer, I'm going to tell you right now, if he is a sex addict, you are enabling, and you're not creating consequences that are meaningful, like stepping away from the relationship. And I don't know that you're protecting yourself. I mean, this guy sounds like if he's a sex addict or if he's just a person who kind of has these uncontrolled liaisons, he doesn't seem like he's healthy. I don't think he's the kind of person that, is going to be a safe relationship for you right now. I think he needs to do some meaningful work before you can really trust that this is going to be something you could permanently invest in. And he's your fiancé. I mean, what's going to happen when you guys get married? Let me tell you something. A magic wand does not magically come upon people at the altar and change who they are, their character defaults, and everything that they've been doing to survive in their lives. They're the same person.
The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Yes. And so I'll tell you right now, I want to see you step away from the relationship. And have some kind of requirement. Tell him, listen, you're going to get therapy, or you're going to go to Sex Addicts Anonymous, or you're going to go to, get help. But I need to see some differences. And, him just promising you things is not going to cut it anymore. And I think, I don't know, Nick, there's a lot of pieces to this. Getting on escort websites, even if you're just going to see the escort and you're not really touching her or whatever, you're just looking at her, it doesn't matter. You're acting out. Like, that's sexual acting out. That's negative, illegal, red zone behavior, and you're doing it in a sense, to get some kind of sexual fulfillment.
So it's actually even going, I mean, she starts by talking about emotionally cheating, but it's actually going beyond emotionally cheating, because there's the behavior that's going on with it, like actually going to meet the escorts.
Yes. And a lot of couples, Nick, I've seen this before, and I'm going to tell you right now, my first guess is, yes, I think this person has some kind of sexual compulsion, because this is the kind of case that I'll see. This is exactly the kind of template that I've seen before, where they're trying to honor the relationship. Oh, but I don't touch other women. But yeah, I do talk to them. It's only digital, though. It's only the internet. It's all make-believe, you know, and they kind of have these lines they cross. Well, I don't actually sleep with the escort. But yeah, I do call them. I do talk to them. I do all, and it's the ritual, Nick.
Right. It's everything leading up to it and stopping just short.
It's every piece of it. It's just like an alcoholic. Well, I didn't order a drink, but I did sit at my favorite bar, and I did breathe in the pool room smoke, and I did order the beer nuts, and all the steps of the ritual. But don't worry, I'm drawing the line at this. Well, I didn't finish the beer, you know, or well, I just had a sample. It's different. And it's the same kind of thing. And so what I'm seeing in this, I don't think she has all the truth. I think she has glimpses of the truth. But I also see that this thing has such a preponderance of negative acting out that I honestly believe he probably is the kind of person that I would describe as likely having some kind of compulsive sexual behavior that, again, the debate between ASECT and the rest of us is, well, are you going to pathologize this guy's sexual behavior? Is there anything really wrong about his behavior? No, not if he's being honest about it. Not if she consents and she's like, no, I'm fine with this. You can tomcat with escorts and talk to other girls and none of this bothers me, then fine. But clearly, it's not on the level. Like, he's trying to have two kinds of relationships. He's trying to have a monogamous relationship on one hand, and then he is going out and intentionally pursuing every invalidation of that first kind of relationship, which is a negative consequence, and he's acting out despite negative consequences.
Yeah, I think, and that ultimately is the big issue, right? I mean, it's that idea that that he's going to continue this same behavior when there are no consequences for it, right? Or when there are consequences. I mean, she talks in here that they've broken up so many times in the past and gotten back together.
Right.
I'd really like to know kind of what were the circumstances that are like. So
Hat in hand, what apologies.
Changed? Yeah. What did you see that was different that made you think that this is going to be different? Or was there anything that was different? Maybe you just missed each other.
Right.
And there was no discussion about what's going to be different in the future.
But doesn't it just sound like an addict cycle? Doesn't it sound like an enabling cycle? Like, she's stuck in this. Even his use over time has increased. She said with the pornography, he's gotten into racier things because he's become numb to old things.
Right. And that's a common thing when looking at porn addiction. Not even just addiction, just heavy use of porn is it kind of loses that stimulation.
You got to have another edge.
You have to continue to
which is not, again, in and of itself, this evil thing that I'm going to throw a rock at here. But I am saying it's causing a preponderance of problems in the relationship. He's going to lose his fiancée. And, whether we tell her that she needs to take a step back from that relationship and ask him to get help, or whether it just continues unchecked, it's clearly not on a course to victory right now.
Right. I mean, yeah, the current course that she's on right now, it's going to get worse. It's not going to even plateau.
No.
It's not going to just like get to a certain spot and then, okay, well, everything's about the same and I can deal with this.
Right.
And that is one of the characteristics of addiction,
yes.
is that it doesn't plateau. It is continually declining.
Yeah, and another interesting little note here. I don't know if you caught this detail, but she said, this is weird that I'm writing this because this is the same guy who used to make me pinky promise and promise that I wasn't with anybody else, that it was just him.
Right.
And that's very common.
my response to that was exactly the same as yours, which is just like, no, that's common. That's normal, because
the person who cheats is always afraid that you're doing that. Because that's how their brain thinks, so they assume that's how all brains think.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny because I had a patient once. She's an older woman, and she would go through her husband's closet and check every coat, every suit jacket for a strand of hair, so much as a strand of hair. And she was that, and he was like, they were there because it was causing all this problem. Her hyper-paranoia, her hyper-vigilance. She was always calling and checking on him. If he was 5 minutes late, she was sure it was something else. And she would have a really volatile response. It turned out she had 7 different affairs going on herself. And the marriage came to an end because of that. But she had just had a string of affairs. And, that's what caused her mind to constantly be suspicious and looking around.
Yeah. Which
is ironic because, that doesn't mean that if somebody's suspicious, they're definitely cheating on you. But again, it's not causation, but I see the correlation there. It's a theme I've seen before.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sitting here looking at this letter, and I'm really kind of wondering, like, to the writer, what's in this for you?
Right.
I get that you definitely love this person, but this is a stressful life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to have to go through this. I wouldn't have to live this every day and constantly be concerned. It doesn't seem like this is a good way. This doesn't seem like a good relationship.
I agree. And I'll actually come alongside Nick on that one, and I'm going to say it to you slightly differently. The answer to your question is that if you want a better relationship with this person, whether you want to stay with them or not, your response needs to be the same. You need to have expectations that you can measure, that you can see changes in his behavior, and you can see him accomplish milestones, whether that's going to Sex Addicts Anonymous, whether that's checking into a program, whether that's meeting with a therapist regularly. You can see something that gives you evidence to hope and believe in what he tells you with his words. But right now, the actions do not line up with his promises, with his words. It's all false. And so if you continue down this course, I'm not okay with it. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that are scared that if they catch, their spouse or significant other talking to somebody else or making a mistake, sexting, or, they have an affair or whatever, that's the end of it. That there's no going back, you're a fool if you go back, and I don't want to say those things because I don't believe them. As a therapist, I wouldn't be very good at my job and I wouldn't be very effective if I didn't believe people couldn't change, right? Mm-hmm. People can change. Even people like this guy in this story who seems really, really interesting and really, really frightening. And, there's a lot of data points to say, goodness, girl, when are you going to step away from this guy? I believe even he can change. I believe even this relationship can be salvaged. But it cannot be if you refuse to institute any kind of expectations or consequences or awareness of what is going on. You cannot just continue to be the victim of the lies. You have got to get support, just like alcoholics, families of alcoholics go to Al-Anon. Families of narcotics, people that abuse drugs that are illicit drugs or pills, they go to Nar-Anon. There is Sex Addicts Anonymous, and there is a support group for those who are the spouses and family members of those who are sex addicts, and I strongly encourage you to look it up. Find that fellowship and do some self-care, because until you become a healthy person who has boundaries and standards, you're never going to know what version of your relationship could have been attained. It's just going to continue on its course, and I believe that ends sadly.
Right. I agree. All right. We've reached the part of the show for apologies, Patreons, and reviews.
No apologies this week, Nick. Right. We can proudly hold our heads high. We have not been criticized. Well, not too bad.
I feel like somebody had something, but I didn't let you know.
Oh, great. Well, then we apologize.
And I apologize for not recognizing.
Who else are we apologizing to this week, Nick? We apologized to the metric system and the world last time. This week, I guess we can apologize to all of the internet that now we have a Patreon and an Instagram. So we have actually expanded our reach. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we keep
sorry we won't go away.
Yeah, sorry we just won't take the hint. But we actually got some really great feedback. We got an email this last week from Manu. She's a therapod, and she's the president of our Brazilian fan club. And she gave us some feedback from the last show and helped us understand not only how the metric system works, which she really did, which was great, but she also had a comment on a segment that we had about being pro-anorexia and the unique dynamic between body shaming and, but health and where that comes from. And this is what she said. I'm going to read her email, a quote from her email that really stood out to me. She said, "Think about spiral springs, which are actually called helicoidal springs, but never mind that, I'm just a nerd. Now imagine you're keeping it under pressure, and suddenly you release it. There's a buildup of energy on the spiral spring. There's tension from being bent out of its natural shape. When you let it go, the spring will expand beyond its limit, and all that momentum will come out. Then it will retract, not to the same position as before, a little looser this time, gather potential energy again, and extend forward once more. And this movement back and forth will continue to happen until the spiral spring goes back to its inert state, resting in perfect balance. No pressure, no buildup. That's basically what's been happening in society for the last few decades. More or less, the springs have been released. Almost all